Jada Pinkett Smith. What is she? Part 4. Hello. I'm H.G. Tudor, and we continue our examination of what Jada Pinkett Smith is, utilising a variety of materials that are starting to paint a more convincing picture, demonstrating what behaviours she engages in so that we can understand them more effectively. We now turn to an incident of where apparently there were 45 days of crying. The relevant material tells us that during an interview with Bossip, the Red Table Talk host revealed that her 45-day meltdown was not caused by Will Smith. It wasn't about him, she told the publication. It's really misleading. I wasn't crying because of Will. I was crying because I had created a life for myself where I wasn't happy. It wasn't him, she explained. This is quite an interesting assertion of control, because as you know, ordinarily that a narcissist will blame other people. But in a suggestion here that, was it Will that caused you to be unhappy, the suggestion that she was being made unhappy by her husband denotes weakness, and instead it's necessary for her to engage in some form of apparent mea culpa, of suggesting that actually she'd created a life for herself where she wasn't happy. This isn't a genuine admission that she's at fault, but rather it's an attempt to nullify the threat to control by suggesting, oh, your husband has had such an impact upon you that he's upset you, hasn't he? Because that's interpreted by her as weakness. And instead, oh no, he can't affect me that way. Only I can affect myself that way. Only I can engage in that. Which exhibits a grandiosity and a need to assert control. Speaking on what viewers could expect on the second season of the Facebook show, Jada hinted that her not being a conventional wife will be one of the things discussed on one of the episodes. We talk about this, Jada not being a conventional wife, a lot in the episode, so maybe I'll save it because I don't want to give away too much, Pinkett Smith told the publication. Assertion of control through secrecy. Although rumours of a divorce have rocked the couple for years, it seems that nothing will get in the way of their 20-year marriage. Here is the thing about Will and I. We are family. That is never going down, Jada said during an interview on Sway's Universe earlier in the year. We are family. Take out all that whole marriage, relationship crap. At the end of the day, Will and I are family. I'm going to hold him down. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, that is a man who can rely on me for the rest of his life, period. Essentially, what's being stated there is the facade of her being reliable, because when somebody suggests that her relationship is on the rocks, when somebody suggests that there's divorce, that's a threat to control. It makes her believe that she's not able to govern the relationship with her husband appropriately, and therefore she dismisses it, and does so in a contemptuous way to say, he can rely on me, we're family, it's got nothing to do with you. But the point is, by suggesting that it's got nothing to do with everybody else, why then do you put so much detail about your relationship out there in the public domain? Contradictory behaviour and hypocrisy. Returning to the affair that she had with August Alsina, he told a radio personality, Angela Yee, during an interview that he and Pinkett Smith had a relationship with Will's blessing. She, however, said it wasn't an affair and said she never needed her husband's blessing. Devaluing of Smith, nullification of threat to control to suggest that she needs to kowtow to her husband in any simple or straightforward way. I felt it was really important to come to the table and clear the air, Pinkett Smith said on her Facebook Watch show. We were purposely not saying anything. We specifically never said anything. So coming to the table was like, we just felt like it got to the point where you got to say something. There was a 12-minute sit-down where Will Smith took his wife's user position on the programme, interviewing her about the relationship she had with Alsina. In the circumstances, that shows an absence of emotional empathy, putting him through this questioning of her, enabling her to hold forth, explaining her position, and gain validation in that way. The two said they'd befriended Alsina, who just needed some help with his mental health, false compassion. But eventually the couple went through a rough patch. As Pinkett Smith put it, we broke up. We decided that we were going to go separate for a period of time, and you go figure out how to make yourself happy, and I'll figure out how to make myself happy. Abrogation of responsibility, lack of accountability to the relationship. This whole factor of an open relationship is quite simply saying, As and when I choose, I can do what I want. And when I want to have a relationship with you, I will. But the rest of the time, I'll go and do what I want and sleep with whoever I choose, because after all, this is an open relationship. It was at that point Pinkett Smith said that she got into a different kind of entanglement with August. But that said, she wanted to make one thing clear. Smith never gave his permission for the relationship because it was not his to give. Nullification of threat to control, haughtiness, arrogance. The only person that can give permission in that particular circumstances is me, she said. And therefore, again, that is a rather self-absorbed approach and a clear need to assert control. But what August was probably trying to communicate, because I could actually see how he would perceive it as permission, because we were separated amicably, and I think he also wanted to make clear that he's not a homewrecker, which he's not. At the time of her and Alcina's relationship, Pinkett Smith continued, I was very broken. Now in the process of that relationship, I definitely realised that you can't find happiness outside of yourself, and luckily enough, you and I were also going through a process of healing in a much different manner. Pity play. As for why her relationship with Alcina started, Pinkett Smith added, I just wanted to feel good. Selfishness. It had been so long since I felt good, cocking a snook there at Will Smith. And it was really a joy just to help heal somebody. Grandiosity, fake compassion. I think that has a lot to do with my codependency, blame shifting, which is another thing that I had to learn to break in this cycle. There's something about that childhood trauma that feels as though it can be fixed through fixing people versus fixing me. Saviour concept. As the two talked about the relationship, they kept the tone light, teasing one another at times. I think it could be weird for people that were laughing and talking about it, Will Smith said, but it happened so long ago, Pinkett Smith said. And our experiences of working through it, fighting through it, talking through it, and therapizing through it, Smith said. At another point, Smith joked, I'm get you back for the relationship. You're going to get me back? I think you got me back, Pinkett Smith replied. I think we're good on that. Okay. Shutting him down, the assertion of control. To which Smith admitted, okay, that's probably true. Both Pinkett Smith and Smith said it was jarring to see Alcina share the story now, and they haven't been in communication with him for some time, shelving. Still, Pinkett Smith said, I'm grateful for the journey that you and I have had together. Grandiosity. Still, the two didn't gloss over how rough that period in their marriage was either. At one point, Smith said, I wasn't sure I was ever going to speak to you again. The fact that I'm speaking to you again is a miracle. Pinkett Smith replied, I would agree. Having such an interview with him demonstrates a lack of boundary recognition, a lack of emotional empathy for him in putting him through talking about this entanglement stroke affair. It also demonstrates the haughty arrogance by which she operates, where she talks about he doesn't have to give permission because he doesn't have the basis of giving any permission. It's my permission to give. Of course, the impact that it had on August Alsina is rather interesting, because he spoke with the Breakfast Club's Angela Yee, talking primarily about his album, but then claimed that he'd been in a relationship with Jada since being introduced to her by her son Jade in 2015, and that it lasted some time. And he explained that he was emotional, as how Jada's the only person he's ever loved, and how he devoted himself to her and poured himself into their relationship for many years. However, Jada's rep was quick to denounce his claim, saying it was absolutely not true. Denial, invalidation. Again, we have the insistence of August that Will gave their relationship his blessing. Will and Jada have been very public over the years about their open relationship, but her team says the whole thing is made up. Invalidation, revision of history. The singer claims walking away from his relationship with Jada when she butchered him and basically killed him, so it sounds for his part like he's pretty deeply in love with her. There may be some dramatisation on his part as to how he's felt, but assuming that he was butchered by her, that exhibits a lack of emotional empathy on her part, that she picked him up, chewed him up, and then spat him out. August also hinted at a sexual relationship with Jada previously, when he made some thinly veiled references to her in his song Nunya. However, representatives of Jada have made it very clear about the stance, and that it's over, and that it was little more than an entanglement, which again demonstrates belittling and invalidation. Moving away from the relationships, of course, Jada Pinkett Smith has mentioned about her porn addiction, And she, again, demonstrated this in the Red Table Talk, opening up about her unhealthy relationship with porn and saying she couldn't get enough adult videos when she was single and trying to practice abstinence. Well, in such circumstances, oversharing information, lack of boundary recognition, and having a porn addiction is a manifestation of the narcissistic dynamic. In the program, Willow asked her mother if her porn fixation came from an emotional place, and Jada says that's exactly what happened. Jada, who's been married to Will for almost 22 years, said she was feeling an emptiness when she got hooked on porn. Again, that doesn't mean that she's necessarily aware of what she is, but that she is able to express that as part of an excuse for the behaviour that she engaged in, which shows a lack of accountability and a potential pity play. She explained that she used to watch some hardcore videos which were profoundly disturbed. She also explained that she had a self-proclaimed masturbation addiction when she was younger. She explained, my grandmother taught me about self-pleasuring because she wanted me to know that that pleasure was from me. Lack of boundary recognition, oversharing. She didn't want me to fall into the hands of a man, and if he gave me pleasure to think that was him. And she taught me at 9. Again, being taught about this at such a young age demonstrates a potential lack of control environment, which supports, of course, the formation of what she may well be. She then goes on to state, I think by your age I gave myself multiple orgasms. I did, she continued. I was really into it at one point, just because I was in an exploration state and I was abstaining from men, and I actually think I went through a kind of addiction too with it. And then one day I was like, enough, you're having 5 orgasms a day. Again, she's talking about all of this in one of the Red Table Talks with her mother and her daughter, evidencing once again a lack of boundary recognition. In an appearance on a show Watch What Happens Live, Jada Pinkett Smith stated that she was asked about the most ridiculous rumour about her and said it was based on Will and her being swingers. But she added with considerable enthusiasm, I wish, which again denotes her lack of accountability and a clearly voracious sexual appetite. She was then asked, with reference to the length of their relationship being over 20 years, how they kept it hot. She hesitated, mumbled and stumbled and wasn't actually able to produce an answer, and then eventually admitted, I don't know, before finally stating, we have great chemistry. That exhibits the fact that she doesn't actually know what keeps them together because she's too preoccupied with what matters to her rather than the relationship itself. And that in that instance, when she's asked the question, there's almost a 404 moment where she fumbles around trying to find an appropriate response before weakly going to, I don't know, and then stating, we have great chemistry, which is hardly the most mind-shattering revelation about the nature of a relationship. I've mentioned earlier that in an interview, Jada admitted that she was dealing drugs, criminality, lack of accountability, and also she explained that she was involved in excessive drinking. She stated that once I was going for that 3rd bottle of wine, I said, you've got a problem, and it was cold turkey that day. That day, I just stopped. Again, she gave this revelation in Red Table Talk. She was discussing the increase in alcoholism among women, especially in the past year during the coronavirus pandemic. She explained that the episode was important for her because wine, for me, was like Kool-Aid. I was a hard liquor drinker. Excessive alcohol consumption is an absence of accountability. It also exhibits a lack of emotional empathy for people who would be affected by such behaviour. She went on to state, I could drink almost anybody under the table. Grandiosity. Will specifically. Will's a lightweight. Denigration. I used to be a hard one to keep up with, she continued. Pinkett Smith said that when she began drinking red wine, she downplayed the possibility of addiction because they say that red wine is good for you. Drinking red wine for me was like drinking glasses of water, she said. Grandiosity. Boast. The actress added that when she moved from Baltimore to LA in 1990, she began doing cocktails comprised of ecstasy, alcohol, and weed. Drug taking, which again is an abrogation of responsibility, When asked if her addiction ever negatively impacted her ability to do her job as an actress, Pinkett Smith said there was one eye-opening incident that occurred on the set of the 1996 movie The Nutty Professor. The actress said that she passed out in the makeup trailer and lied about the reason. Attending work whilst unfit, sense of entitlement, lack of emotional empathy for those affected by her behaviour, lack of accountability. Also, she lied about the reason, telling of lie, which is lack of accountability. She explained, I went to work high, and it was a bad batch of ecstasy. And I passed out, she said, and I told everybody that I must have had old medication in a vitamin bottle, telling of lie. Pinkett Smith said that was the last time that happened, and she's more aware of her limits since overcoming her addictions. Grandiosity, sense of invincibility. I've had a glass of wine here and there, but I cannot touch vodka, she said. I think back on my life and I'm like, I'm a walking miracle. Grandiosity, no doubt about it. Boasting, Pinkett Smith added. In part 5, we will touch upon allegations of her relationship with Chris Rock and more about the behaviours, including the alopecia and the behaviour at the Oscars. Here we've seen yet more evidence of traits of grandiosity, lack of accountability, behaving with a sense of entitlement, manipulative behaviours through triangulation, and so the picture continues to build up with regard to her behaviours. Join me in part 5 for further analysis.